that make these incredibly cool watches that I've been wearing. These are super mechanical, very well designed. These are watches made by car guys for car guys. So hit the link down in the description. Go check them out. Go support what they're doing as they're supporting us. Now, here we go for today's episode. Hey guys, this is Chris Ashton. We met him out at SEMA because we were drooling over his Mustang. So start with a 1970 Mustang.
Right, yeah, it wasn't a Mach 1, it wasn't anything rare, historic, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a decently solid driver. At the end of the day, I wanted to build a Trans Am car for the street. You know, so
right.
In the 69, 70s, they were racing the Mustangs against the Corvettes and the Camaros and all that, and the guys. So I've gone to Laguna Seca, I've gone to the Long Beach Grand Prix, and I watch these guys run, and I'm like, I want one of those that I can drive to work. And for some reason, I'm really, really attracted to like race cars.
Yeah.
You know, there's a simplicity to them and a very direct, like there's one thing that they're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, go fast around this track. For this car, I wanted to go wide body with it. I wanted to fit as much tire under there as I could, which meant fender flares. I've never made a fender flare, and I wanted it to be steel. And I see it on TV, I see it on YouTube. Doesn't look that difficult, so maybe I'll give that a shot. So I made the first one, and it wasn't the best. And I started on the front because it's a unibody car. Right. If I screwed up a rear fender, there's no easy replacement, right? So if I screw up a front fender, I can buy a replacement front fender. So I started on the front. From just a clean factory fender to fender flares welded on and the welds are smoothed, it was 10 hours.
10 hours on each one?
On each one, yeah, which I've heard people quote like 400 hours for a set of flares, but for me it was like 40 hours.
Wow. So I've heard the same thing, like hundreds of hours to create what you've done here in 40 hours.
Yeah, so I don't know what that was. I don't know if that's just a different process or
that's what. But builders making a bunch of extra cash. If I remember correctly, you're running a 315 up front, right?
Yeah, 315 up front and 345 in the rears. I do a lot of autocrossing. I've been autocrossing for 20 years.
Yeah.
Autocrossing is a lot about lateral grip.
Sure.
You know, you don't need a lot of power.
All right, you guys, be prepared. Any purist right now, like, take a Valium or whatever the current version of that is. You're gonna wanna relax, take a deep breath. It's not that big of a deal what he's done here. There's reasoning behind why he did what he did, what we're about to show you here. Seriously, hold up. For any of you guys that don't know what you're looking at here, you are not looking at a Ford motor any longer.
Yeah. So this is a LS3. It's a 7-liter, so it is a 427. It's an aluminum block. So 625 horsepower, around 560 foot-pounds of torque. The 1970 Mustangs, they had those cool scoops on the front fender extensions, and those were fake back in the day. But for me, I wanted to make those scoops functional. So I made inserts, air scoop inserts behind those, and then route the air in line to the carburetor so I get cool air in there.
Oh, crazy.
So yeah, the motor, the reason behind it was because I didn't want to cut out the shock towers. If you go modern Ford Coyote, you're gonna have to cut out the shock towers, put a different K-member in there, do all that stuff. Again, I wanted it to kind of appear old school, even if I was using more modern tech under there. So I wanted to keep the shock towers. Shock towers were in all the race cars. I cut out the firewall and I flattened it so the motor's back 2 inches. Kind of a subtle thing is the engine bay. Like I cut a pie slice out of this. They did this on the race cars to make them aerodynamic. They cut 1 inch out of the front so the fenders pivot down.
So the whole car slopes down a little bit, doesn't it?
Slopes down, yeah.
I thought so. I couldn't tell if I was just looking at it from a strange perspective or something, because I had a 70 Mustang when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
I remember the car well. I thought you did something there.
There was always something when I would look at the race cars, photos of the race cars, I'm like, why does it look so aggressive? I mean, obviously they have slicks and stuff like that, but there was something else going on. And so I got on, I started talking to these guys who own these cars and run them. And yeah, Bud Moore and those guys back in the day, they cut, it wasn't legal, they cut 1 inch out of the front of the car to drop the nose down 1 inch to be more aerodynamic.
Wow,
and
that's so cool.
They ran them in 69 like
that. And that wasn't legal to do?
It wasn't legal. But nobody noticed in 69. In 70, they cut 2 inches out and then they got busted.
So it was a little too much.
Too much, yeah.
So what's your transmission in the car?
It's a T56 Super Magnum. It's a 411 rear end, so I wanted that for the track and for autocrossing to, you know, have good gear ratio in there. But then I want to be able to get on the freeway, you know, and cruise to work. So 6-speed, you know, with that overdrive is just,
you're fine.
You don't even notice the 411s in this car. It just drives like a normal car.
Wow. All right, let's go in the interior here. So obviously it's fully caged. This was smart to make life easy to get in and out of.
Yeah, again, just the streetability of it, right? I want it to feel like a race car, but I also, the realities are, if it's too hard to drive, if it's too uncomfortable, too hot, then I'm just not going to drive it that often.
Totally, dude. Yeah, absolutely. So set up to race, though. I mean, like, your panels are just aluminum, right? Simple. This is actually the first part I've seen on the car where I go, okay, I can tell you made this. Like, it's not super sophisticated, perfect, you know, it's raw.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's, I haven't used the bead roller very much at all, and so you can tell. And you know, I finished these on Sunday before SEMA, and it was like I kind of had one shot because, you know, only so much time in a day.
Totally.
So I got them on there. They're a little bit rough, but they work, and maybe one day I'll go back and when I get better at bead rolling, come back and do it again. But yeah, it's fine.
So fully caged. Now that's still stock dash, right?
It is a stock dash setup. Just with autometer gauges in there. Yeah, vintage air, and then the race cars would oftentimes have a lot of their switches in a box in the center.
Right.
So the, you know, fire extinguisher, AccuSump, that stuff's all set up according to the race car is real similar to that.
Are those stock pedals?
They are-ish.
Yeah.
It was automatic when I got it, so I had to convert it to manual. And then on the clutch pedal, I had to build a box off to the side of that to run the master for the clutch, because they didn't run hydraulic clutches back in the Mustangs back in the day, so you have to kind of hack that stuff together to make it work now.
And then what are the seats you have here?
Seats are just from Summit. They're Cobra seats, but they're like vintage style.
I love that, like, I see it's a quick release, but that you went with a total old school wood wheel. Is it? That's not the stock wheel that came with this car.
It's not. It's a reproduction, like a modern interpretation of kind of the old vintage thing. But I loved the wood finish. And, that it had, you know, the Mustang center cap and stuff. Yeah. I have a smaller diameter steering wheel for like when I go autocrossing that I can just a quick release swap out. Right. But if I'm driving around on the street and stuff, I use this one. Yeah. Because it's got that vintage feel.
Dude, it's so cool. It was one of the things that caught my eye at SEMA, seeing it through the window, was like, you've gone this far with this car and yet you've got a friggin' wood wheel in there. I just thought that was so cool, dude. I'm completely tripped out I mean, I swear to God, if it was built by a custom car builder, I'd still be blown away. I just can't believe this car was built in this setting here, other than painting the damn car. I swear to God, dude, I'm blown away by that. If I remember correctly, when we were at SEMA talking to you, you said you learned to TIG weld so you could do this.
Yeah, because it's aluminum. I wanted to make it lightweight, but you can't really MIG weld aluminum, not very well anyway. Okay. So yeah, that meant getting a TIG welder and practicing and trying to figure out how to weld on aluminum. So they're not the best welds in the world, but they work.
Right. I mean, you could totally pick it apart if you want to geek out on it, right? But again, when you bring it back to you're not a custom car builder, and it's not like it looks awful. You know what I mean?
It's functional, and a lot of it is like the car is a lot nicer than I ever intended it to be. The idea was always it was a race car, and in racing, you don't really give a shit what it looks like. Like as long as it's functional, that's what you're concerned about, right? It ends up that the end result looks badass, but their intent is not to make it look badass. Their intent is to go fast. It's just a byproduct, you know? So,
absolutely. Last question. What's the Ruffian Mustang?
All the major car builders, they name the cars. Yep. I see it on TV, I see it on YouTube, right? Oh yeah. And so I was like, well, I gotta have a name for the car. Yeah. And so I was like, geez, what would I name it? I was like, oh, it's a Mustang, and it's a race car. Mustang's a horse. I'm gonna go look at race horses. And so then I started digging into the history of like the different famous race horses, and there was one named the Ruffian that was, you know, one of the best racers ever, one of the best race horses ever. And then the name Ruffian, it's like, okay, well, this car looks like it kicks ass and is made for going fast and being brutal, and it also has a Chevy motor in it, and so I don't really care what you think, whether you like it or not, and it has that attitude. So for me it was kind of the right attitude, but then there was also a little bit of like history and inspiration and stuff as well, so that's where it comes from.
Yeah. So the final thing we're gonna say is it's time to go for a drive, you guys. So let's go for a little rip.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. Awesome, dude. You can totally drive too. Like you've been performance driving for years. You can tell.
Yeah, 20 years of autocrossing.
Sounds so good. You gotta be stoked, man. It's gotta be some real sense of accomplishment to do your first ground up build and have it come out this good.
Yeah, I mean it feels really good. It feels solid, feels planted. It actually feels better. It actually feels better than I expected it to.
Does it really? Oh my God, this thing sounds so good, dude.
What's nice about these shocks, so they have a G meter here, and they have a sensor for the brake pedal, a sensor for the throttle, so they know if you're on the gas, on the brakes, they know if you're turning.
So it auto adjusts?
So whenever I turn left, the right shocks get real stiff. If I brake, the front shocks get real stiff. So they're constantly, and they'll do it like 60 times in a second.
Wow, dude.
So they're constantly making adjustments. If I'm going from a dead stop, it knows what speed I'm going.
All right, you guys, that's it for our shoot of this extraordinary 70 Mustang. How cool is this car, right? And again, the idea that this is done in this garage right here. Just truly incredible, man. I'm stoked that we got to shoot this car today. I hope you guys had fun with this one. Thanks as always for hanging and watching and supporting what we do. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you in the next episode. All right, man. Later.